Network. And today's topic is remembrance of 9/11 and clearing collective trauma. So it's hard to imagine that it's been 20 years since 9/11. And I want to spend some time looking at the energetic field and clearing some of the collective burden of that emotion from ourselves so that we can bring more light into the world. So we'll spend a little time with that today and our recollections. And good morning, Andrea. Welcome. It's great to have you here with us today. So before we get started, let's take a few minutes to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules and electrons, lighting you up from the inside out. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together. And very softly rub your fingers against your palms and feel the tickling and the tingling and that wonderful sensation, and allow yourselves to become present right here, right now. So welcome. It's so good to be here with all of you. And we are coming up on a very significant, important anniversary, the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And I say significant and important because it was an event that changed the world. And I imagine that there are a number of us who, most of us, remember where we were when we learned of this. I was in my living room. Actually, I was waiting to connect with a friend who called me and said, turn on the TV. And I turned on the TV and was absolutely horrified at what I saw. And I saw the second plane go into the towers. And I, in thinking about this yesterday with my coaching group, I have a weekly get together with my clients. And I thought that what I realized when I was thinking, I was sorry, there's so many feelings and thoughts all at once. So I hope you'll be patient with me here. So I was in the car yesterday, and on one of the anniversaries of 9/11, and I don't know, I'm not sure which it was or when this recording was from, but it was Barack Obama talking about this 24-year-old guy who had rescued 18 people. He just kept going back into the towers to find people and lead them out. And he ended up dying in the towers. And as I was hearing this, the emotion of the day just arose in me and completely overtook me. And I hadn't realized that emotion never got processed. And also I recognized that this moment, this time of 20 years anniversary, is presencing this event and the horror of it all over again in so many ways, and particularly on the tails of COVID and the profound emotional and social disruption that we have been experiencing for the past more than a year, 18 months or so. And so it occurred to me that what's happening for so many of us, and so many of us in this community are supremely sensitive and empathic people, that what's happening for so many of us is that we are experiencing not only our own emotions, but that we are receiving the emotion of the field. And as a result of that awareness, I chose to do an exercise to be clearing some of that energy and to be allowing us to be connected to our own, whatever's our own, and clear some of that as well. And because I think trauma unprocessed begets more trauma. And I think collectively, if we can clear this and bring light to it, that it will have far-reaching ramifications, not only for ourselves, but for others who are, I think we can get caught up in this mass consciousness, this mass awareness. And part of the clearing process is enabling yourself to be present to what's truly there. And as I said, I had no awareness before I was listening to that beautiful tribute on the radio that the wounds of that crisis, of that event, were still so alive in me. And in fact, I remember, and I want to know if you're willing to share what your experiences were of that day, and related to that event. I remember going to New York while after that happened, after 9/11. And in Grand Central, there was a sculpture, a memorial sculpture from some of the wreckage. And I saw it and I just burst into tears. I mean, there's such a collective grief, or such a large grief, that we would do such things to ourselves and each other. And if we look at how the world has changed since then, there are so many changes. I mean, it's normal for us to be x-rayed at the airport. It's normal for us to be searched, body searched, our property searched. This is the norm. And now we're moving into a new norm where we're wearing masks and carrying papers that define our status, our health status. And there are bans going into effect in social environments. And so there's so many changes, and collective fears, and collective sorrows. Good morning, Christina. Welcome. I'm so glad you're joining us. And we're talking about 9/11. And we're talking also about the collective energy, the grief, the shock, the horror, the despair. There's so many emotions that were stirred by that event. And for a while, there was a great opening of hearts, and in many cases, bridging of differences as a result, where people felt a camaraderie, a connection that was unprecedented in my lifetime, in my recollection anyway. Good morning, Tammy. Welcome. Tammy says, I was at work and 8 months pregnant. It came on the news. We all stood around and watched. No one could talk. We just all stood there and cried. And here's the emotion arising again. Yes. And I don't know about you, but I was just talking about how yesterday hearing a tribute from on the radio by Barack Obama for a brave 24-year-old man who saved 18 people and then died in the towers. The sorrow, the grief, the shock of that day came back to me in full force. And so I'm thinking that this morning, what I would deeply appreciate from you is sharing the stories of where you were and sharing some of your stories about this so that we can presence ourselves to whatever emotion is there for us, and to recognize that part of that emotion isn't ours, that we have taken on the emotion of the collective, that this has been a collective trauma. And as such, we get to clear the energy of that in ourselves to come back to ourselves. Because we talk about sovereignty, we talk about connection with our hearts and our souls and our own light. And what happens is that we are part of a collective as well. And we are influenced by the collective awareness, the collective atmosphere of fear or despair or resignation or sorrow or anger. And so I think that we get to take this opportunity to presence ourselves to ourselves and to bring light not only to our own trauma, but to the collective, so that we can help to heal this and allow people then to go forward from this without being paralyzed by it and by the fear of it, and without being controlled by the fear of it. So I'm wondering if anybody else would care to share the story of where you are now in regard to 9/11, and also where you were when it happened. I did not have a personal direct loss in terms of anyone I knew or family members. I have a family member who was living in New York at the time, and I was trying to cross the bridge over was trying to get to Brooklyn, and it was a very, very challenging experience. So if nobody's going to comment right now, I think what we'll do is we'll just do a really short process to presence ourselves to our emotions of the day. And if you can allow yourself to just take a minute and presence yourself to your heart and allow yourself to be aware of the emotions that you're feeling, if you allow yourself to feel them, the despair, the shock, the terror, the grief, the disbelief, to just feel it in your body for a moment, to recognize, oh my gosh, it's there. I have those feelings. They're in my body. I feel them in my heart. I feel them in my throat or my stomach. Perhaps you feel them in your fingers or your toes or your back or your face or your eyes. And notice those feelings. Notice if you are able to separate them, to define the combination, the incredible amalgamation of so many feelings that it's hard to wrap your hands or your head or your heart around. Good morning, Dennis. Join us, if you will. We're clearing collective trauma of 9/11 and beyond. And so the first step to this is to be presencing yourselves to the feelings, to the awareness in your body, and just breathe into that for a moment. And presence yourself now to your heart and notice the feelings that are in your heart. And as you're aware of all these feelings, allow yourself to recognize that some of these feelings aren't yours, that perhaps some of these feelings are from the collective, that some of these feelings don't actually resonate with your own heart, even though you're experiencing them. And allow those feelings to begin to fall away. And as you start allowing those feelings to fall away, put your attention on the light that you are in your heart and allow that light to grow and transmute and transform and release those feelings that aren't your own. And as that light grows brighter in your heart, allow it to transform and transmute your emotions of grief, of shock, of rage, of fear, of sadness, of disbelief. Allow that light to grow and dissolve and transform and transmute those feelings. And as that light grows and as those feelings transform and transmute, allow the expansion of that light to go beyond your heart, beyond your body, to grow and fill you and to emanate beyond you and to be transforming the fear and shock and rage and grief that is part of that collective field, and allow it to grow and grow and grow and connect with the light being emanated by others, to be clearing this collective energy and to be lighting it up and enlightening it, to be bringing us into greater presence, to be feeling the connection and the collective strength and brilliance. And allow yourself to breathe in that light and to breathe out that light as it expands beyond your direct environment, to be expanding through time, to be expanding through space, to be connecting with other hearts that are shining light, and to be creating a brilliant, brilliant field of light. And just allow yourself to be present to that for a minute or two here as you breathe in and as you breathe out. And notice that your heart is lightening if you allow it, and is freer, having released those emotions that were not your own, and having been focused on the emotions that still remain, and having allowed those emotions to transform and to transmute and to move into light. And when you're ready and not before, you can come back and join us, hopefully lighter. than when we started. So thank you for joining me in that. And Christina says, I too was pregnant and ordered on bed rest. My first pregnancy, I stayed firefighting through my 6th month. And now I was in bed rest, not able to help. Now I help with getting legislature passed to help survivors. Christina, that's remarkable. Who would have known you were a firefighter? And for those of you, you know what, I also have friends who were pregnant during that time. And I can only imagine we know that our emotions are fed to our children as we're pregnant. And so I'm wondering, your children must have tremendous courage and strength. And in doing this process that we just did, perhaps you've been clearing trauma that they may have inherited without their awareness as well. And I find that there's so much collective trauma that we absorb without any awareness. And Tammy says, wow, Christina, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing. Indeed, Christina, it's awesome that you're taking action and that you were a firefighter. It's mind-blowing. And I'm sure it was very challenging to have those skills and not be able to be actively, physically engaged on scene. And it's awesome that you're helping to get legislation passed. And the thing is that there's so many people who were heroes and survived that event, who have had all kinds of extreme health consequences. And it's awesome that you're helping to support those folks, Christina. So I'm wondering if you guys were able to participate in that brief exercise, if it made a difference for you to be releasing some of that energy. I think there are expansive consequences to carrying collective trauma and personal trauma. Bernadette, good morning. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here with us. Yes, some really awesome self-inquiry today. Yes, indeed. We're looking at this event of 9/11 and 20 years. It's unfathomable to me that 20 years have passed since that event. It's just mind-boggling, and how disruptive it was in so many ways to the fabric of our culture, and how it began, what's changed. It's almost like there was a naivety before, or an innocence that was broken on 9/11. And if we think about it, look at the differences. I mean, now look at what our new normal is. We go through X-ray normally. I mean, like, that is the norm, to go through X-ray at the airport, to be patted down, to have our belongings searched. And this is all part of the norm. It's a changed world. It's a changed world. And by doing work with the collective, I mean, we've talked about that this week with the Ho'oponopono prayer, that when we're doing that, what we're doing is we're connecting to the collective, really. And we get to heal the collective. We get to heal ourselves and the collective together, that it's all really one. And I think that there are, another event that I remember, and I am embarrassed to say that I don't remember which launch it was, but when the rocket blew up, when there was a teacher that was going into space among the other crew, and I'm embarrassed to say at the moment I don't even remember what it was, but it was such a vivid, remarkable, horrific event to be watching that launch and to see it explode in the air. Tammy says, I did not lose anyone that I knew personally, but I cry every time we talk of that day. Brings up such a feeling of loss and pain. I watched a video the other day about it and ended up going down my phone contacts and telling so many people how much I love them. Tammy, I'm hoping that you can look inside and allow. I think some of the grief that we felt is a collective grief, and I can say that in clearing that, it has enabled me to be more present, without the horrific, wrenching grief. I mean, it's a devastating event in our history and for humanity. And I think it's a beautiful thing that you took that you transformed that pain into reaching out to the people that you love to let them know. Because one of the things that we get to be present to is how tenuous life can be. You know, how in any given moment life can end. And so perhaps we can use this as an opportunity to remember to be present to living and to not take things for granted or people for granted. So that's a beautiful thing that you did, Tammy. Good morning, Lisa. So good to have you here. We're talking about 9/11 and the 20th anniversary and what an impact it's had on all of us and on the world. And Bernadette says, unfortunately, at the beginning, I think it was a mindset that it wouldn't happen to us, with being naive that others may have a purpose in their own minds. We are then forced to go into hypervigilance. I think that this is a really important thing to look at, the notion of hypervigilance, because it's a place of heightened fear and perpetual fear. And I'm wondering how we get to walk the tightrope between presence and awareness and hypervigilance. Because I think that we can have an awareness and a presence without the adrenaline pumping, fear induced hyper vigilance, suspicion that is an emotional chemical state versus an awareness and presence. that is not driven by reactivity. I think that it is a tightrope to walk, because there are things that are, I mean, there are threats, real or imagined, right? And the question is, how do we be with that? And how can we hold awareness without it holding us prisoner? So Lisa said, I didn't lose anyone on 9/11, but I grew up in New York City, and that change is my loss. When you stand on Broadway and look down, it's like the front teeth of New York were punched out. It took away the heart. Yeah, this is a time for us to be able to look at so many aspects of our beingness and our identities. And Bernadette says it's a very tight rope. I agree with you 100%, Bernadette, between presence and awareness and hypervigilance. The thing about hypervigilance is that it has a very high cost. And in many ways, it's a high cost of freedom. It's a high cost of health. It's a mental health. And to be in a place of presence and awareness, we've talked about readiness and how presence is the highest form of readiness. So there's much for us to be looking at, and to bring ourselves into presence rather than reactivity, and to recognize that so much of the emotion that we might be holding about 9/11 and other tragic events is not our own emotion, and that we can feed light into that emotion of fear and anger and terror and grief, and we can feed light into the collective. And as light workers, or as beings of light, when we bring our awareness to that, we can consciously and deliberately magnify that light. And by doing so, we heal not only ourselves, but we also impact the collective. So on that note, I would like to just invite you to presence yourselves along with me to the gratitude that I have for the blessings and the freedoms that we have, that we still have, and for the connections that we have. Lisa says, this is why people need to open their eyes and see the cost of things like January 6th to our country. We need to hold people accountable who are seeking to rock the core of democracy. These kinds of attacks make us an easy target by all. You know, we live in such delicate times, and I think that one of our biggest oppressors and obstacles and enemies is fear. Because when we fall into fear, we lose our North Star. When we fall into fear, we lose our direction. Bernadette says, my daughter and I were on top of one of the towers exactly 1 month prior to the day. Wow, we were tourists, and she's forever saying it could have been us. I continue to remind her it was a beautiful day, and we're able to respect all those for their losses and grateful it wasn't our day. Wow, that's such a powerful story, Bernadette. You know, I remember reading so many stories of people that worked in the towers on a daily basis, and for whatever reason, maybe a flat tire or a sick child, or any number of unusual circumstances kept them from being there that day. And it's so interesting how events unfold. And one thing I want to, good morning, Isabel. Welcome. We're talking about 9/11 and the collective awareness. And I want to just tell you a brief story about the collective awareness. So there's an organization called PAIR. I think it's Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Unit. And they study the randomization of events. Actually, what they're studying is collective consciousness. And what they have been tracking, they have these things that they call eggs, and they're all over the place. They're a random number generator. And what they have found is that there are periods when the randomization is statistically less, significantly less than at other times. And for instance, these anomalous kinds of events of, I guess, synchronicities, literal synchronicities between these random numbers, where the randomization becomes much less, happens around world events. And so what's fascinating is that a couple days prior to these events, the synchronicities start becoming apparent. And so there were about 2 days before 9/11, it was indicated there was something happening. And then it went through the roof on 9/11, the coordination or the synchronization of these random numbers went through the roof. And the same kind of thing, not to as extreme a degree, but when Princess Diana died, and other kinds of events like earthquakes, etc. And I actually remember hearing stories of people who knew about 9/11, who saw it, who experienced it before it happened. I remember a story about someone who heard it on the radio 2 days before it happened and called friends and said, "Did you hear about what happened in New York?" And so the fascinating thing is that we are part of a collective hive mind, so to speak, even though we don't recognize it. And these anomalies that are scientifically documented are validation of that fact. Lisa says, my mom taught me to treat people like they're going to die tomorrow. This is so there are no regrets. And I think that we get to be informed by our death, Lisa, as to how to live life. That if we keep our death present, if we know that it could invite us at any moment, that we live our lives in a different way when we're present to essentially the accountability, when we're accountable for our actions and our behaviors, and also being present to the preciousness of life So this is a profound opportunity for us to look at life, to look at who we are in the world, to heal our fears and sorrows, and to bring ourselves as fully present as we possibly can. And we're at a precarious time in the world in so many ways. And we're all being called to be our best selves, to be the light to our greatest capacity, because we are the ones that shape the future, all of us who are here right now. And so we're called to that. And, you know, maybe we can do Ho'oponopono on 9/11. You know, that as we do that individually, we help to clear the collective. So with that thought in mind, I'm going to call it a morning. I'm Mira Rubin, here with you on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page, The Core Connection. I go live each weekday morning here at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I invite you to check out all the other remarkable programming on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page, Enlightened World Living, EWN One with the Earth. And Bernadette says, condolences to all who have lost and to those who share the experience of that day with love and light beyond our experiences. Namaste. Have a wonderful day. Bernadette, thank you for that. That was so beautifully said. And while we share our grief and sorrow, let us share our light and allow the light to prevail. And with that, so much love and appreciation and gratitude for you. Wishing you a wonderful, wonderful weekend. So much love.